I was hoping for 4 announcements too, but I don't want to hold my breath. Not a big fan on how Snyderverse fans present themselves or push the campaign. Got way too negative. I support the cut. I feel like overall, this specific campaign, the Cell movement, has been trying to steer positive, in my opinion, but that's subjective. Some people think even asking, some people believe in their own opinions that even asking for a continuance is toxic or negative. So I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But we'll also get to Zack's response as well, which I think we need to stop. I believe we need to stop putting our opinions onto Zack and let the man speak for himself. Because if you honestly just let him speak for himself, you'll see that he is interested in some type of continuation. So that, to me, justifies people trying. You could fail, but he would love to do it. Absolutely. I support all hashtags as long as you're not toxic. You know, I support the Batgirl movement and I support Star Trek Legacy as well. All right, so now let's hear. All right. And now he's saying, can you hear me in the back? Because they were having trouble. I believe, at least, I'll be careful. I believe they were having trouble getting the mics around in the back there. And he said, well, can you speak without a mic? And he's like, yes. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me in the back? Because he was shouting out, you know. He didn't need a mic, even though they couldn't get to him fast enough.
This question is for Zack Snyder. Zack, my name's Skywalker Jedi. I've been on a little bit of the hero's journey myself doing the project, right? Seeing this thing here is truly a moment that has brought this entire new Cell campaign into a full circle moment, if you will. My question for you, sir, is would you be overjoyed if your stories were able to continue in any form, even if it was on a third party outside of WBD?
Now, before we get to his response, I would like to say I think it's ridiculous. I'm not going to gatekeep and tell people they're not Snyder fans if they don't want that question answered. But I think it's ridiculous for people to clutch their pearls when he basically asks what everyone really wants to know. He asks what really people want to know. Would you continue? And I mean, I guess I could be wrong if you're a Snyder fan and you don't want to know that. But honestly, what Snyder fan would not want to know if Zack Snyder still in 2023 wants to continue? That's even if you think it's possible or not. And you'll hear the response from Zack in a second that he says that's a fair question. I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think that, if we're saying that we don't think that's an appropriate question. And you know what? Let the man speak for himself. And this is what you'll see. I'll put it full screen so you can hear the words for yourself.
Listen, that's a good question.
That's a good question. Now, don't impose. I would ask that you not impose your own biases against certain individuals and consider yourself a Snyder fan and ask, would you really not want that question answered? I don't know if I would specifically ask it. You know what my question was going to be if I was in the auditorium? I was going to ask if he ever came back to superhero movies, would he prefer to work with an established IP or create his own superhero universe? That's what my question would be. But honestly, can you honestly say that you would not want that question answered? Now, if there's any other questions in the chat asking if you think he still stole someone else's chance for a question, I guess that's subjective. I don't believe it. I wasn't there personally, but I've watched this from multiple angles. And as far as I could tell, they were discussing what the symbol is on his shirt. And then Ray Fisher said, that's a black Superman. And then Zack, being too PC, maybe, he says, no, that's not a black Superman. That's just Superman. Because he thinks anyone can be Superman, I guess, in today's age. Because he is somewhat progressive, I believe, at least. But saying, that you would not want that answered, or that's a dumb question. And actually, someone in the audience behind this person filming was throwing shade on the question too. And I'm like, really? Aren't you being disingenuous? And I subjectively think that people don't like the question because of who it came from, is my viewpoint. But that's a question that a lot of us would want to answer. That's the most exciting question of this Q&A part. Now, there were some cool questions on the BVS watch party from our good friend Rhea that I started watching. But during this part of the Q&A, that was the most interesting question to me as a Snyder fan. Would you still, after all this, now I don't know if I would phrase it like that, but after everything he's gone through, would you still be interested in developing some type of continuation? And then there's other that you really could tell people. You could tell some people's motivations online that say, no, the hashtag should be animate the Snyderverse. But it's really just any continuation is what he asked. Any continuation. Let me see. What do you say to Snyder will not deny a paying customer pushback? Snyder will never say no, leaving the fan base dangling and needing to do that. Everything is a sign meme. I've said I think I love Zack, but I think he's too vague sometimes of what things are going to be, and it can give people false hope in itself, these announcements of events. But him saying I would love to do it crushes the narrative of he'll never say no to a paying customer for me personally. Him saying I would love to is different than I would do it. He said, in the context of his answer, he says that, let me make sure I timestamp this too. Zack says, I put a lot of work even into the future, and any time of continuation, that would be amazing. I would love it. So I believe that I'm not imposing my own biases onto that answer. I'm taking him for his word and not conflating it with my own personal opinions of where Zack's mental space is. He says, I would love to do it. And then we'll react to that right now. Okay. Let's hear what he says. Take him for his word. Don't impose what we believe of him onto him. Do you respect the man enough to just take him on his word and say that's a good question? Instead of imposing, well, he was being nice. You don't know that. Do you know what's in his inner workings of his mind? No.
Fair and it's exciting and look, I love the world.
I love the world. Let's really break this down. I love the world.
Obviously, I've not put a small amount of effort into this mythology, and we have done not also a small amount of work.
And he's saying it's not even been a small amount of work that he's put into the continuing it too. So he knows where he would go. And the other context of this whole event is he says, I don't want to spoil it. That to me does not mean that it's going to continue, but his heart can't take spoiling it just in case. That's my interpretation. It's subjective, right? This is all subjective. But my interpretation of that, of him saying, them asking, well, what would you do He's like, I don't want to spoil it. That doesn't mean there's something that's going to happen. It means that he's still holding on himself to maybe he'll get to complete it. Now, the hurdles may be too high, but until he spills the beans on where he would have gone and him saying that he would love to do it, I'm kind of thinking he's still holding out something himself. And the door is like just a crack open to him actually telling that story. Because if the door was completely closed, I think he would just tell you. I think he would just tell you, well, this is what we're going to do. Not, I don't want to spoil it for you. And maybe he puts a treatment in as a book where I would have gone and he doesn't want to spoil it there. Maybe it's animation. Maybe nothing ever comes out ever, but he needs more time to lapse before he tells you what he would have done. Till he knows for sure, you know? All right, here we go.
Toward what the eventualities of these scenarios might be. As far as, I've had an amazingly, this is my experience with you guys, and with this material has been incredibly satisfying, and I couldn't be happier with the way that, you guys have been able to, dig in. We always talk about, like, if you want to go deep on these movies and on this mythology, it's there, right? And so, yes, would I be interested in whatever medium or whatever way these ideas would be to perfect?
Yes. That's all. I mean, that's all we really need. That's all you really need to debunk this part. Where were you, perp? That he wouldn't say no to a paying customer. He said, in no small part, I put a lot of work into the future to dive deep. And he said, in any medium, would I be interested? Yes, absolutely. Okay. But then he also said, I am focusing on my other stuff. And he did kind of distance. I will be honest with you, though, because I do have some cell viewers in the chat right now. I will be honest with you. He did kind of distance himself from the movement too, and be like, I am focusing on other things right now. But he did also say that the fans have their own ideas, and they tend to get things done. I don't know the exact verbiage. I don't have that clip ready. But I'm going to play this again just for emphasis, the man's words alone. Let me see here. And I honestly think if it was exactly closure, that he wouldn't have said this, and this would have been the story that everyone would have been running headlines. Here's my opinion. Okay. If he shut it down right there when he could have, how many articles and how many live streams and videos would be there that Zack finally closes the door? It's all down to interpretation, but to me, it's more clear than to most, okay? He won't tell you what he's going to do in the future because he doesn't want to spoil it. And he said he would love to do it and try not to impose your feelings about the situation onto him. Yes. Yeah, please be civil. But let's repeat this for him, to really go deep on it again and take the man on his word. There's no reason to question that he's not being genuine or he's just telling you what you want to hear. And if he had a problem with the question, we shouldn't impose what we think on the question. He said that's a fair question. That's a fair question. And I call bullshit on anyone else that doesn't want to know the answer to that. Maybe you want someone else to ask the question, not the person that did, is my interpretation. because of your own feelings. This is your own feelings. Okay.
That you guys have been able to dig in. We always talk about, like, if you want to go deep on these movies and on this mythology, it's there for you, right? And so, yes, would I be interested in whatever medium or whatever way these ideas would be? Of course I would.
Of course I would. And then he got a cheer. So I don't know why then he got cheers in the crowd. So I don't know why everyone's upset about it afterwards. I don't, in retrospect, because he got a cheer. Of course I would. So if people cheered, that means that's what they wanted to hear too. Yeah. The whole stolen question thing is a nothing burger. No need to indulge. Yeah, I feel for listen, I also understand that people didn't get the answer, didn't get to ask questions. I feel for you. They only had an hour. Mario was going to be shown. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, and in the meantime, we forge ahead. We do what we do.
In the meantime, though, that's where I say, I would say yes, he's left the door open, but hold your horses, because in the meantime, we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to do what we're going to do. We're moving on. We're not going to. I think here's my personal reaction to this is the door's open. He would love to do it, but he's also in the same breath. Well, he maybe took a breath before that. He said, but we're going to do what we're going to do and move and keep rolling. He's not going to wait for that to happen, though. He's going to be actively developing things, All right. Let me see. It's not closure, but it's also he's busy with other stuff right now. Rebel Moon, Army of the Dead franchise. Yes.